Welcome back. We want to add to our learning, or rather add a couple of things that we might need to use in our C, where in this particular instance we want to build from some of the concepts or some of the elements that we have done so far. So for example, we have learned that we use a printf, and this is what I actually refer to as a string. Okay, so we want to merge some of the concepts that we have worked with to create our own version of a string. And in essence, a string is just another version of our character, only that it gets more values than our character. So we can work with a string in the following format. Okay, in the main function, we then want to create a character, which is the data type for our character. We can actually then put in a string variable, which in this case will make it an array, and then our array should then have the strings that we want to work with. So, or the string that we want to work with. Okay, so we can then name this string as follows: neighbors. Okay, that then becomes our string. And for us to actually display what this gives us, we will simply do the following and put the value of str is, we'll put a %s, put a new line, we'll put a comma, and then we'll put our str like that. So in this particular instance, if all things are being equal, we should be able to have a running project or a running program, which is exactly what we've got. So I'll just break this down in its simplest form. We are simply saying our variable, which is str, is supposed to get a number of characters, and then those characters we put them in an empty array. Our empty array is supposed to then pick all the values that we've got and display the elements that we've got within that particular variable. Okay, so we can also proceed and add more to this so that we can see different ways of actually working with our strings. Okay, we can add more content to our main, or we can actually add an extra function that will do something slightly different from what we already have. Okay, so we have worked with functions, so we'll put a function in this particular manner. Okay, we can put a void, and then we call this function GetString. Okay, with our GetString, we want it to be able to also have a character and then str, which is also an array. And if you remember, we call this a function prototype. Like that. We then display our function or work with our function here. So we put void getString, and our getString should also give us a character str. We open and we close brackets. We have our main brackets for our function. Okay, so in this particular instance now, we want to be able to get a given string. Okay, and to get our string, we might need to do it in the following manner. We can then state that whatever string we've got, we put it into this particular instance. Okay, so we can put a printf, and our printf does the following. Getting string from main, like that. We put a new line, and then we put a printf again, and instead of putting a lot of text, we can just then say string is, we'll put a %s, we'll put a comma, we'll put our str. That way we're actually literally just getting the string that we've got from our main, we are putting it to our getString, and then we display it within that particular function. Okay, so we are simply then passing our string from one function to the next. So how we'll then get to see how this works is, I'll simply put an enter there. I then put my getString, and in my getString I simply pass my str, and if I run it now, I'll be able to see what my string is. Okay, so the first value of string is neighbors, and then getting the string from main, we then have string is neighbor. Okay, we may not see a bit of a difference because we've done more or less the same concept in one program. So let's modify this program a little bit so that we get to see how we can play around with our string. We still want to work with a string, but let's say we enter different attributes, okay, so that we can see how we can play around with our string. We'll create a new project, and our project would be called strings and functions. Okay, so we'd want to do exactly the same thing, a slightly different manner of doing it, but more or less the same thing. So we'll still have our function. We won't change the name of the function. GetString is the function, and then our getString also needs a character, str, open and close brackets. We then do the same for our main. Okay, but in this case now we want to put str, and then the first one will be 1, and we want character str2. We open and we close brackets, and we leave it at that. At this particular point, we don't want to initialize. We just want to work with it as it is. But we then want to put some inputs, or rather we want to prompt a user to enter some content, and with that content we want to be able to then pass the contents that have been placed into exactly the same output that we would have got, or rather we want to give an output based on what has been passed. Okay, so we do it as follows, and we say printf enter first name. Okay, and then we want a scanf, and we want our scanf to get the value of the first name, str1, like that. We also want it to do exactly the same. Printf. We want to get enter last name. Okay, and then we have a scanf, where our scanf gets to like that. So we'd want to get the first name, we'd want to get the last name, and then we want to be able to display the content. Okay, so in this particular instance, we're just going to use it as GetString Twice. Although there is ways that you can be able to play around with it so that you can get to pass the two strings into a single function. But in this particular case, I want to use GetString Twice, where I pass each element individually. So to do that, I put my getString, and with my getString, I do the following. I pass my str1, I put my getString again, and then I pass my str2. Like that. So the moment I've got that done, I now need to get to my getString function and then specify what I want this function to do. Okay, so what I would want this function to do is just do the following. Printf, open and close brackets. We'll then do the following, where we want our string percentage s, rather let's actually put it as output, and then put our str, and then like that it's done. So how this will then work is we'll put okay, this particular instance, this doesn't work. Let's actually put an empty string, which should also give us something. Okay, so putting an empty string helped us with this open array that doesn't have any values. So let's test our code now. So we put heater so it didn't actually give us our output. I don't know if you guys who are following can pick out where our element or where our error is. Okay, I'll still give you the answers. Okay, but there should be something wrong with our logic. Let's actually work with our logic and build it from there. Okay, if you look at the first program that we did, here's the first program. We simply put a character string and then we initialized our character, which was neighbors, and then we get the value of the string, and then we pass that string into the next element. Okay, so this is how this program works. Maybe let's break it down step by step. We are saying we are using getString, which is on line 3, and getString is supposed to get a character array, which is empty. Okay, and then when we get to our main function, we're then now saying our str is then equal to this. Okay, when it's equal to that, we can then get that value which is here. So str now has a value. And the moment str has a value, we can now actually display what that value for str is. Okay. In our particular instance now, we don't have a value for str. Where when we pass this value, we don't have values. Okay. So one element we can do is we can actually try and then say that when we want to work with our str and we want it to give us a value, we don't need this to be empty, because the moment this is empty, we can't get anything. But we can try and redo our code and do it this way. We put 20 maybe and 20 there, and when we run our program, we should be able to get something now. Okay, there's another error that I had not realized. My mistake, my definite mistake. Let's actually go back a bit. I had put a %d here, we need a %s. That's one other error I had not noticed. My mistake there. Let's just try it as it was. Okay, so it's now giving us an output. My mistake, I actually missed that part. And since I missed that part, my output was wrong. Okay, so let's run it again. So we want Peter Parker, right? But our output is still wrong. Why is our output wrong? Remember when I said when we are passing our values, we'll just get the value that has been passed last, and that is what we'll see. So for us to actually get this running, we need to just get this str1 before we get our last name, like that, so that when we are getting our values, we are getting the exact values that we need. So let's just test it out now. Parker. Okay, so that way we are good to go. We get our first name, which is Peter. We get our output, which is Peter. We get our last name, which is Parker. We get our output, which is Parker again. Okay, so that way we have actually reused the same code with a few tweaks and a few changes, and those changes now give us the output of the toString. Okay, so as you can see with how I was working with our code, in some instances you always need to test and understand how your code works, and that then helps you to design your program or give the output of whatever it is that you want your program to be working with and to be doing.